Or is everybody stunned? Well, I think we have another inspiring video coming up.
I missed it. Can you play it again? I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's good. Well, I saw Jenny here. I see a couple of other folks who might be able to make this video happen. So maybe they're working on it. So while we're waiting, I guess we can keep chatting.
Is it time to start though? Isn't it 8:30?
Thank you, Senorina. It is 8:30.
Can I ask real? Oh, I was just going to ask real quick. Is it possible to get? And I know you guys have probably said this. Copies or be able to watch these speakers again somehow. Like he was really good, and yesterday the ones from yesterday. Can we get those videos?
So they are supposed to be loaded up into the Canvas shell and accessible. Okay. I don't know how long it will take. It's probably not going to be until sometime next week. But you can check back there, and we were thinking about just notifying everybody when the recordings got posted. This morning's TED Talk, you can just go to TEDx, or maybe it's not TEDx, maybe it's TED. You can just go to TED and look for Christopher Bell, and you can find it. That's available to everybody who gets onto the internet. Yeah. So Jenny, let's do our video real quick. Senorina, it's 1 minute. So if we can just indulge everybody's attention for 1 minute, then we'll turn it over to you.
Felicidades, mija.
Gracias, pa. Sí. Tú también lo puedes lograr.
Lo voy a lograr, mija.
Hola, Miguel. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Yo soy Gemma. Mucho gusto en conocerte, tu consejera de hoy.
Nosotros componemos, tiene que ver con lo mismo que ustedes utilizan en los tractores.
Con las que tengo la...
Antes de que tenía licencia, está manejando, ¿verdad? Dígame.
¡Lo lograste!
Gracias.
All right, we're happy to welcome our first presenters of the morning, and that will be Senorina Vasquez and Janet Flores. And we're looking forward to hearing about the equity rubric and where you've been and where we're going. Welcome. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, thank you for that video. That was, I'm kind of having a hard time speaking. It really made me choke up. So give me a moment. That was a good video.
Hey, you've got a moment. I'm touched by it too, and for a different reason, because I've been working on Spanish and I could understand a lot of what they said. So that was very exciting for me. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Okay, well, you guys, when you're ready, we're listening, smiling.
I missed the video. Sorry. I'm having internet problems. I don't know if you guys saw, but it threw me off twice. So I am now on my phone's hotspot. So I hope I stay logged on. So I missed the video, so I'll have to see if I can watch it later. But maybe it's good. Description.
Okay,
so for our
oh, there we go. She's gonna. You're coming in and out, Janet.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and begin then. Yeah, I'll go ahead and begin. Oh no, actually, Janet,
Am I back?
begin.
Yeah, we got you.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. So I'll try to do my part here and hopefully it doesn't cut me off.
Just go quickly.
Okay, so these are some images you saw yesterday. We had great presenters. Jay presented some of these, so I'll just quickly go over them. I'm not going to go into the level of detail that you saw yesterday in Dr. Camo's presentation and in Jay's presentation. But basically, we are just trying to create an equity-minded teaching. As you have heard before, equality does not mean equity. And there are a group of our students have different backgrounds, and some students, as you can tell by that second image there in the middle, they have some additional opportunities, privileges that help them achieve academic success. But there are other students who have perhaps to face other obstacles, and you can tell by the middle ladder that perhaps they did have some opportunities. Maybe they did go to a good school, but however, they suffered microaggressions, implicit bias, or other barriers to their success. And then there's another student, and that student just faces just an uphill battle, and it is just much too difficult to succeed. You can tell just by the hole at the bottom, that they really are starting not even at a level playing field. They really are below, and they suffer just so much more that is really hard to overcome, and they often don't even have a viable path to success. And grit is not always enough to succeed, and so or to achieve academic success. And so that is where we try to come in and provide tools for that student to actually have a path, a viable path to academic achievement, and really help not just that person, but just the community at large come up. And I think that that's really what we're trying to focus is how do we change our mind to be more equity minded and employ more equity minded teaching practices and provide these tools for these students. And so, yeah, we just want to focus on students experiencing disproportionate impact. And so we have another short video.
Hit play?
Yeah, hit play, please. Oh, I can't hear it.
Uh-oh. Okay, let me try again. Here it goes.
In the U.S., equality is an important principle. So why isn't treating everyone equally always the right thing to do? The problem with equal treatment is that it doesn't always lead to equal results. Every plant needs sun and water. But that doesn't mean we should give all plants the same amount of sun and the same amount of water. A cactus needs a lot of sun and very little water to thrive. A tulip needs a moderate amount of both to produce a healthy bloom. A fern needs lots of water and just a little sun to grow big and bright. If you are planting a garden, you probably wouldn't place a cactus, a tulip, and a fern together and expect them all to thrive. But our classrooms are filled with students who all have different needs. By focusing on equitable treatment, we can consider those individual needs and then provide resources and support to meet them. That way, all students can thrive in school and life.
So as you can see there, it really is not about treating everybody equally, but meeting students where they are. And I think that was a big point from that I took away from that video. And Nina did a great job yesterday. She got a lot of amazing quotes from Dr. Camo's presentation, and this one was really hitting the nail on the head too. And it says we should define our students by their potential, not their limitations. And I think that's a really great way to change our minds. Oops, am I getting cut off? I hope not. And if I do, I apologize. My internet is failing me. Or am I hearing somebody
Yeah,
else?
so
Somebody else
you're
talk?
cutting out a
Okay.
little bit. Yeah. But,
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
We really, these are learning outcomes for this presentation. There are 5 dimensions that we will be presenting, and we really hope that you can be able to describe them and identify at least one possible activity from each dimension that you can incorporate into your classroom. And that will be our focus, and we hope we can achieve this today.
And it's my turn. So some of the stuff you might have seen already before if you attended my presentation last year. So I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly. This is the background I'm going to provide next regarding the equity rubric. First, we started to view these gaps between between group success rates as opportunity gaps instead of achievement gaps. And what we've learned over the past few years in our research is that to see the levels of achievement that we want to see, it is a combination of equity-minded strategies and opportunities that together will provide that level of achievement that we want to see. And so the opportunities that are sometimes missing involve funding, resources. And so what we want to do here is address the root of the problem by providing extra opportunities where there were few. And one of these quotes that really stands out to me at the bottom here is that if without an equity perspective, in other words, if we don't put on our equity glasses, our equity lenses, we are using the existing lens of oppression. That lens has existed for us. You know, the media presentation that we saw yesterday, that media is providing that lens for us anyway. And so what we are trying to do here is put on another set of glasses. So here is a little bit more background in terms of data. Here are the inequity success rates on the left for all students statewide California community colleges in over the past 3 years up through 2020. And you'll see that throughout the state of California, there are disparities between these 3 groups. And the lowest group being our Black students, next the Latinx, and at the highest is our white students. Now, you'll note though that there was a jump, that things increased, and you might be tempted to believe, hey, we're doing better in 1920 than we did in 2018 and 19. But what happened was that the excused withdrawal option, the EW option in spring 2020, as a result of the pandemic, excluded a lot of grades from the denominator. And so it did cause a rise. The table on the right is for Hartnell. So take a look at those numbers. Who is the lowest? Who has who has the highest success rate here? Right, you can see who has the highest success rate. And so the biggest opportunity gaps seem to be still for our Black and Latinx populations. And I just pulled this data off of, and if you're interested, you can click on these links to go look at the source. So because of this data that we've been looking at in the Student Success and Equity Committee, we started exploring options, ideas. And so in spring of 2020, we discovered the online education initiative course design rubric, and it contained 4 sections. Section A is on content, section B is all about interaction, section C is about assessment, and section D is about accessibility. And what this does is it allows us to visualize these 4 components of teaching and to just sort of move towards alignment and maybe exemplary practices in the classroom. But we noticed that it didn't have a piece specific to equity. Along comes Peralta, and that was still in spring of 2020. In fact, Cheryl had shared this with me back in 2019, but it wasn't until spring 2020 that I was ready and we were ready to look at this. And what Peralta did is they expanded that OEI rubric, and we're looking at that. So there's 2 pieces that our committee is looking at. The 3rd piece happened on March 26th of 2020. And what we did is in the committee, we together, can somebody please mute? I think it's Emily has her microphone on.
Yeah, if anybody has control, can they mute her, please?
And so in March of 2020, we all watched this webinar by Dr. Luke Wood and Frank Harris, and they emphasized these 5 levels or these 5 dimensions, these 5 areas for best practices. And so in the committee, what we did is we put all of those things together. The OEI, the Peralta, and we put them together into our own Hartnell College rubric, and we created 5 dimensions based on these titles. Last year, we presented on dimension 1, which is called Be Intrusive, and we then took a lot of feedback from faculty, and we recently updated it in this last fall, 2021, using faculty recommendations. And one of the recommendations was to adapt to face-to-face. And so it is fully adapted and updated. So I think it's your turn, Yana.
Okay, I will keep my video off. Hopefully that helps me not get so much cut off and whatnot. So I think Nina is going to place the link to the rubric in the chat. You also had a link to that rubric as part of the resources if you check that out on the Canvas page. So you should have access to this rubric, and we want everybody to there, she's getting it ready, to open it up and take a look at it. See that that rubric. Perhaps some of you already have it. Again, it was part of the material that was provided to you on that Canvas page. There it is. So if you go ahead and click on it, you can open up the rubric, and it's also good to have it and know where to find it. We did just update it, as Nina explained. This document is a collaborative effort from the committee as a whole. Nina really spearheaded that, and we have some of you guys have it already. Exactly. So we did update it this semester. So if you have last year's version, just know that it has been updated. It really just has a lot more examples. The dimensions themselves have not changed too much. It's the same dimensions. We just changed some of the wording, and we really put in a lot of effort into providing a lot more examples just to make it more useful and practical for everyone. So we do have it there, and we do intend, as Nina explained, this was an inspiration from the OEI rubric and the Peralta rubric, and then we really use the framework from Dr. Wood and Dr. Harris. So it is inspired from different places, and we just really hope that you can have it create a sense of awareness and thoughtfulness, so that you really consider your own methodologies, your pedagogy, and perhaps even have it make you feel validated. I think that's something that we really realized as we were working on this, that, there's a lot that we are already doing. So this is not to say, hey, we really have to start from ground zero. There is a lot that we are already doing, and perhaps it will provide that validation. But it is a resource. It is something that you could do to find more of those high impact practices, as it's stated there. So if you open it up, you'll see that the first page has the definitions. It has, and I know that Jay did a good job going through these yesterday as well. And it just explains a little bit of the background, just kind of what Nina had explained. Then we go on to the framing language. And in that framing language, again, it talks about where we got our inspiration. It talks about the OEI rubric, the framework from Dr. Harris, and then it really brings up those 5 points, just a little bit more concise in one page. And so that's the second page, and then the third page is where we go into into each dimension. From the 3rd to the 11th page, we have all 5 dimensions there. And you'll notice they're odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, because the even number pages contain the examples. And these are just examples that we came up with as a committee that we thought would exemplify each dimension and the characteristics that we are looking for from each dimension. And again, these are examples that we came up with, so they're from our own faculty and staff here at Hartnell. Nina, I will let you, yeah.
Okay, so one of the recommendations was to add more examples last year. One of the requests from faculty was to add more examples. And so that's why the rubric is now twice as long, because each dimension has a page of examples of actual implementation. And these examples were collected by us in the committee by reaching out to our coworkers, our departments, our divisions, our friends, our faculty. And so we picked each other's brains and we were able to add a whole list of examples. Another recommendation and request from last year was to change the title of Dimension 1 from be intrusive to be proactive, to be something else, because the intent of this dimension is to be proactive with student engagement. And why we do this is so that students, to prevent students from falling through the cracks. And but we in the committee, we actually discussed this at length, and at one point we did change it, but we decided that it was best to honor the intention of the authors of these dimensions, Drs. Luke Wood and Frank Harris. And so we left it as is, and I know it makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable, but we thought, well, maybe that's what the purpose of Dr. Harris and Dr. Wood was, to make us a little bit uncomfortable. So for now, we did decide to honor the name as they named it. I won't be going very much in depth on Dimension 1 because we did talk about it at length last year. It was about welcoming language and consistent contact with students in a non-judgmental fashion, and without waiting for them to come forward to us, right? Offering students the help, offering the support even when they don't ask for it, to quote Dr. Aricomo from yesterday's keynote speaker. And all I did include here was something that was popular request from last year, which was the warm and supportive language that we can use instead of these common phrases that we use in our pages and syllabi and communications to students. So that said, I'll move on to Dimension 2. Dimension 2 is be relational.
Sorry,
oh, and I see a question is why we would want to change the OEI. We didn't change OEI. Remember that this is an added dimension, just like Peralta added Dimension E to OEI. They added E for equity. So we created our own E. This is our Dimension E, Tina. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then I had another question actually about the previous slide. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have a lot of questions. But I do try really hard to use supportive language, and I try not to use, I don't say things like no excuses, and I try to work with a student. However, I also think that it's important that the students understand consequences. So because I know one of the suggestions by the keynote speaker yesterday morning was to, drop attendance requirements. However, when I inquired to my dean at the meeting in the afternoon, that's not possible for us at Hartnell because we receive funding based on attendance. So as faculty, we are required to take attendance. And so how do I convey to a student that the consequence if you don't show up? Now I do say, like, I'm going to check on you, like I'm going to
I
follow
think
up with
what
you.
they meant is what Maya said in the chat. Do you see what Maya responded? I think what he meant is don't grade on attendance.
That's not what I heard him say, but I'm also just looking at this language here. So it's kind of both of them that I'm looking at. It says dropped from the course if a student hasn't met the attendance requirements. Now, for me personally, I contact them numerous times before I drop them to try to get them re-engaged. So it's not like I just drop them.
We're talking about the language that we communicate. We're not saying that we're going to change the policies. We're still going to have the high expectations. We're still going to have students drop from the course. We're still going to do that. But what we're saying is that when we communicate to them, when we write that email message, we're saying, instead of saying you will be dropped from the course, when we write this in our syllabus, you will be dropped from the course, what we could say instead, the language could be, I'll check on you, but if you forget to participate, but don't forget the college policy says that, that's what it's talking about. It's the language that we use in terms of being supportive and welcoming. But the expectations should not change. Right. We should have high levels of expectations. Right. So the policy should not change. The rigor, everything should stay the same.
Right. My point with the way that this is phrased is that when I read this, I read that we're not supposed to tell students that we're going to drop them from the class, even though that is the consequence. And so while I understand using welcoming language, I think that we also need to be clear that what the consequences are. And it's not saying lead with the consequences. It's saying, try to be warm and supportive, but the student also, I think, needs to understand what the consequences are. So I think it's a little bit of a mixed message for me as a faculty member to read this, because if I'm not supposed to tell students about the consequences.
No, you are. I think we agree. I think that this is communicating. I think that this is, remember, media, the intent is not to perceive. We agree, Tina, we agree. We have to communicate the truth to them. The students need to be aware of the truth. I think we're just talking about, like Kelly said in the chat, being a warm demander with our existing expectations, about using a warm, welcoming, supportive language that offers support. I will be here to support you and to remind you that you are on the verge of being dropped, instead of you will be dropped from the course, period. So I hear what you're saying. I think we agree with you. And like Maya said in the chat, there is a fine line between welcoming language and being unclear. We're not saying to be unclear. We are not saying, and we are not in contradiction. We are not. We agree.
Okay, and I understand that having this conversation. I think my point is the way that it is framed in that slide makes it unclear for me as an instructor. That's what I'm trying to explain. And so
then I need to work on my media representation.
Okay. And I do think we need to, sorry, I think we need to move along.
Yeah. Dimension two. Okay. So be relational.
Nina, that's me.
Is this
sorry.
you? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, Janet. Go ahead. I got excited.
No, sorry. So with the Be Relational, we really want to focus on creating authentic relationships with our students. With this dimension, we want to avoid the approach me first perspective. Oops, I hope I'm not getting cut off. Okay. Basically, I remember it being said yesterday about being a little vulnerable with students and how that helps them kind of humanize, feel that you are a human as well. And so with this one, we do want to dive in to this one a little bit. Oh, and the reason why, sorry, I did not say the why. So to demonstrate to students that we are invested in their success, we want to let students know that we actually care. And Dr. Camus did a really good job with that. And he stated, you know, that we need to feel with our students. So I think this dimension really dives into that. And we would like to turn it over to you now. You have the equity rubric. In the second page, you will find some examples. And those examples, they're not listed in any order of what we thought was you should see first. So you can just kind of see if there's anything in there that you really connected with, and you will see that we have posted up here the what have you done and what can you do. So we want to do a little bit of a chat storm where perhaps when you look at those examples, you read the what and the why with dimension 2, and maybe type up something that you have already done that you think fits in or aligns here with creating authentic relationship with students, or what you can do. And this is something that you'll see there. It says, I'm not so bad. As Nina and I were working on this, I was like, you know what, when I'm looking at some of these examples, I really felt like I'm not so bad. I'm doing some of these. So perhaps some of you guys can use this as some validation. So if you can type it up, maybe you guys already did a little bit. And then when we give you the signal, you can go ahead and hit enter, and we hope to see a lot of ideas here. So go ahead, type up something that you think you have done or that you can do to create authentic relationship with your students. And if you have something, go ahead and hit enter. Hopefully we get some.
So you're looking at the examples for the first, for the second dimension, right? So I'm putting the link here again. You're on page 6. Look at the examples on page 6. Look at the examples on page 6 and see if there's anything there that you've done. There we go. I see them. Okay, so emailing students about missed classwork, first day instructions between students and faculty. Let's see.
Ooh, the added images, including diverse people. That one will go with our next dimension, dimension 3. That one goes really
How are
well.
you doing? How are you doing? Thank you for sharing. Hold conferences with students to check in. Yes. Cheryl, we flipped the new orientation to, okay. Oh, find out where our new faculty are. You start with practice paragraphs. You talk to students about their hobbies, telling my story of ups and downs, doing a check-in. I never grade math. That's true. That's a great example, by the way, that was given to us. Yes. Have an intro assignment on day 1, learning as much, emailed students, always tell students about, oh my goodness, screw ups when I was in college, all these good ones. Yes, see, so we're already doing, so you're meeting one of our outcomes, which was to identify one for each dimension, trade tips. Keep them coming, but I am going to move on to the, oh, I like that. I grade with a glass of wine.
Yes, these are all great. So we got
I love it. Okay, being relational. So I'm going to go on to
dimension 3, yeah. So dimension 3 is still me. So with this one is about being culturally relevant and affirming, and I already saw some examples of this in the chat as well. So for this one, we really just want to value students' culture and their experiences, their lived experiences, and that way this will provide some relevance and meaning to the class itself. What we really want is for the students to feel that you are invested in them, and that they feel that they are valued and not singled out, not pointed out as an other, but as part of the classroom. This one, images really help. So I saw that one in one of the discussions. So how can we help students feel that they are being valued, that their experiences and their culture is being valued? So again, Yes, Letty, I agree. Let's save this chat. It is filled with amazing ideas. So again, with Dimension 3, focusing on being culturally relevant and affirming, what are some things that you guys already do?
So look at the examples on page 8 and see what you do, see what it is that you will do. Take a look at page 8 and throw them in the chat. Personal invitations to office hours. I like that. By the way, shout out, let's see, to Nancy Wheat. I included your ideas in here. I know I did. The ones you shared with us last semester. So share statistics about health disparities, games, we need to do more, personal invitations, presentations on influence of Spanish, Latinx, African American cultures, highlight women, Latinx, Black mathematicians, encourage them to find their voice, tell their own story, utilize diverse forms of assessment. Yes, I agree.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Syllabus and repeated throughout the term. Please always keep in mind your goal. Yeah. Reminders, right? Just reminders. I know. Gamify and spotlights. Yeah.
These are really good.
Thank you for sharing. Yes. So I'm going to move us through to the next dimension. So I'm getting the vibes in the chat. I'm not, I feel like I'm not so bad. Look at us. We're doing all these things. I ask students to create a learning game about material we study. Love it. So the next dimension, dimension 4, is about, and I believe it's my turn. Yes, right, Janet? Because I keep screwing up.
Yes. So you are, sorry, yes, I was looking at the chat.
4.
Yes, you're 4.
Which is page, yes, is about being community focused. What the intention here is to mold our roster into a community. Instead of just discrete individual students that show up and leave, we want to foster one another's learning. We want to create connections in the classroom. And so remember what we said, this is beyond online. Everything we are talking about today in this rubric is meant to be in a face-to-face setting as well. This is why it is in addition to the OEI rubric. This is why it's a supplement. This is stuff that can happen face-to-face. And so read the examples on page 10. Take a look at page 10 now. So read those examples and see if there's anything there that you have done or that you would like to try. And then type them in the chat. Just type them in the chat as you see them, as you read them. What have you done that you see on page 10, and what would you be interested in trying? Look at those examples. Oops. What did I do? Cohorts. More positive, less negative works for me, but I also believe in being firm. Yes, I agree with expectations. Cohorts, gaming, homework, reflections each week. Introduce yourself. Squads. Yeah, the squads idea is something that I do teams. It's like cohorts. It's like cohorts within your class. We invite new students to join the Calvary Club. Love it. Tell them there's a price. It's an exclusive club. Yeah, only during one-on-one they're encouraged. Yes, turn on cameras.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it helps when you turn on your own camera.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and some of these are more difficult than others. Right, some of these examples, of course, I would love it if you would once again share your examples for each one of these dimensions so that we can add more examples. So let's see, engage students in community art theater projects, ask students for collaborate ideas and be a part of it. planning to require each student to make use of resources, anything from joining a club to visiting the tutoring center as a piece to turn in with their first essay. Love it. Reaching out to students when they have been inactive. Love it. Discussions where students come up with and vote on their favorite mnemonic. To remember, create activities that require group interaction. I love it. So let's go on to Dimension 5. Keep the chat, keep the suggestions and ideas coming, but I do want to move us forward. Dimension 5 is called Be Race Conscious, and it is, as I mentioned to my colleagues before in the department and in the committee, this is the most difficult one for me. It is where we are trying to create intentional opportunities to engage in racial and equity issues. And why we do this is because we want all students to feel that they are valued and safe to engage in discourse. This is the opposite of I don't see color, by the way. This is the opposite of I don't see race. This is actually seeing the color and the race and having conversations, those difficult conversations in class about imposter syndrome and microaggressions and validating them and saying, no, you're not imagining them, this is real. And so take a look at those examples. This is a hard one. And the examples are on page 12. Take a look at those examples. This is probably one that is, I have nothing, sadly. I have nothing on this one, but I do want to start to bring in some discussions about, microaggressions. And imposter syndrome in particular is something that I think I'd like to talk to my students about. Is there anything there, any suggestions? This is where I want to learn from you. What do you do, especially in the sciences? Or what do you think you can do in Dimension 5 there on page 12? This is a hard one. Yeah, this is an area for growth for me too. I assume the students can relate to me. Yeah, I know. I feel like I need to do better. I need to raise. But there are some things that I can do, like provide a link in there for videos on microaggressions. Learn more about them, right? And maybe like. I think one of the examples is let's just put a link to Umoja in our syllabus. Let's publish it. Let's advertise it. Let's, a long time ago, there used to be Mecha on Hartnell's campus. I don't know if it's still around. But these sorts of things and maybe statements in the syllabus. Yeah, thank you. I know we're running out of time. So if you think of any suggestions for Dimension 5, I would love to save them and we can modify our rubric for them. This rubric is intended to be a library of strategies for us, just so that, it's hard to think about these 5 dimensions every day when we lesson plan. It's really difficult, but remember that the ultimate goal is to obtain an optimal balance between challenge and support, while conveying those high expectations and demonstrating authentic care. This is a direct quote from Dr. Harris and Dr. Wood. They are not asking us to dumb down or simplify or cut or reduce or lower anything. We are being asked to have high levels of expectations with high levels of support and being warm demanders. And they're saying that this is all part of being culturally relevant. I do want to say that coming soon, this is a pitch for where's my buddies in STEM out there. Our STEM group on equity has been meeting, and we have been we've been planning some deeper dives into equity. And one of the things that I hope to create in there is a discussion board on the dimension so that we can collect more ideas as we try them. But Brian Palmer is looking at ideas involving low stakes peer observations, right? This is like out of your pleasure and something that could earn flex credit. And then the discussion boards that PMOMOF is on a variety of topics is developing. This is coming soon. Yeah, I didn't put the link in there on purpose because it's not ready yet. The link is not ready yet. And again, this is because, it is a journey. It requires practice and feedback. This is not a destination. We don't align once and be done, right? This is a practice that we just keep growing, like yoga. And go ahead, Janet. We're almost done. We started late, so we deserve an extra few minutes. Go ahead.
Just an extra minute or two. We're almost done. Here it's just kind of going off of what Dr. Camus said yesterday, take a walk in my shoes. And let's put ourselves in the shoes of our students. And how would you experience your own class if you were a student and in your class? And how do you think, what do you think your perceptions of the instructor would be? So let's think that, or imagine yourself as a first generation student. How would you perceive your teacher or the instruction in the course that you teach? What if you were a student with young children and or a financially insecure student who has to work 2 jobs in addition to your class? So basically put yourself in the shoes of your students and kind of try to imagine how they are experiencing your class. And we do just want to end here with so Brene Brown, she wrote, when we deny the story, it defines us. When we own the story, we can write a brave new ending. So with that, we just kind of wanted to leave you with this using, oh yes, oh that's right, Nina, that you would, well Nina, why don't you take it away?
This one.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I am privileged to say that I have a community of practice, an informal community of practice with a few very strong, powerful ladies in my department. And we were texting last night and about reflecting about yesterday's and feeling the weight on our shoulders, the weight of like, oh my gosh, but there's so much to do. And I just don't know if I can give anymore. And then Letty texted this. And so I am quoting Letty, our hero last night. And, when you think you can't give anymore, we are making a difference. And perhaps when we get that feeling of what more do you want me to do? Maybe the answer is nothing. You are doing enough. There are many things I do now that I didn't do 10 years ago. And that's a huge win. So yes, this is a lot. We are not, no one is asking you to do it all or take it all on, right? And what you are doing is enough. Self-empathy, kindness, and compassion for ourselves is definitely the first thing on our list. So thank you so much for entertaining this presentation. And if you have further questions, Janet, sorry.
No, that's okay. Jason did have one question and I didn't want to leave it out. He asked about, has an equally strong message of equity expectations been planted with students? Are students aware of the standards they should hold us accountable to as their teachers? And I thought that was a really great question. And that is also true. I feel, I always tell my students that they need to learn how to advocate for themselves. There's a lot that we can do, but students need to learn to advocate for themselves. And I think that that is a powerful message. So I would like to end a little bit with that and just kind of point out that you are the person that our students sometimes meet first thing in the morning or have the most interaction with. So try to, sorry, I don't know if somebody was trying to say something. So make sure that you have that connection and perhaps you can inspire that student to learn how to advocate for themselves because a lot of them are navigating a system that is very, very foreign to them. But thank you all for being here and bearing with us, me with my technology problems. And if you have any other questions, you can go ahead and email us. And if you're interested in the committee, hey, we're taking new members too.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Really great information. I know my my session this afternoon kind of rolls right in with this. So I think we've all found our theme, huh? Great job, really great information. And to let you know,
one last comment and shameless plug is that we are presenting on grading practices later today. Kelly and Jennifer and Vicky, if you're interested in hearing more about that. Okay, bye.
Excellent. Okay, bye. Great job. We are going into a break right now. I know people need some coffee refills. I blew a fuse, so I have to go figure out which fuse is blown. So if everybody can be back here, we're going to try and start right around 9:25. So go refill your coffee and be back here at 9:25, and we're going to dive into some Rising Scholars trauma-informed practices. So go refill that coffee.
Jenny, can you get us a copy of
Absolutely. I'm going to send it over to you right now.
Thank you. The chapter.
right, that was the fastest time ever. I found my fuse though, so that's good. Okay, I find my Zoom. Let's see, Mustafa. No, you'll manage your own slides. All right. Okay. All right, so up next, I feel like, you know, an old school DJ right now. Up next, we have some of the greatest hits that just keep on coming. We have the Rising Scholars Trauma-Informed Practice. Mustafa and Anna are going to be introducing us to some of the practices that they utilize with the Rising Scholars program. And they have a special guest with them today, Tim Amaral, which they will continue to introduce. So I will turn it over to you two right now.
All right, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for inviting us and allowing us to present this very important topic to you all. My name is Mustafa Gauss. I'm the Dean of Academic Affairs for South County Education Services. I also oversee the Rising Scholars. In addition to Ana Gonzalez, we both oversee the Rising Scholars program. She does a lot of the work with them, so she's the superstar for Rising Scholars. It's one of the fastest growing programs in Hartnell College, and so we'd like to encourage you all to have a conversation with Ana if you're interested in teaching in the Rising Scholars program. And so we'll have a brief presentation also with Tim Amaral, who's an expert in trauma-informed practices. And I'll let Ana talk and discuss the Rising Scholars and some of the achievements and some of the great work that she's done. And then we'll have Tim Amaral also present on trauma-informed practices. So I won't talk too much. I'll hand it off to you, Ana. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. And I will share my screen. Let me know if someone can give me a thumbs up if it's showing. Nina, I see you on my screen. Do you? Not yet? Okay, hold on. Is that okay? Great, thank you. So as Dean Gauss just shared, we will be talking about the Rising Scholars program and also about trauma-informed practices. And we're super fortunate to have Tim Amaral joining us today. So I will be as quick as possible to share about the Rising Scholars program, because I think really our gold nugget today is the information by Tim Amaral. And he needs to leave a few minutes early, but I will certainly stay so that I can answer any questions with regards to the Rising Scholars or trauma-informed practices. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you, Ana.
Briefly?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Tim Amaral, and for the past 30 years, I've been an instructor at the Salinas Adult School, where I work in the high school equivalency program. And when my students leave my class, they transition over to you all in Hartnell, where you guys have been supporting and helping them to rewrite their stories for quite a long time and doing a wonderful job with that. About 12 years ago, I started working for the Breakthrough Men's Community over on the Monterey Peninsula. It's a group that's dedicated to men's healing, recovery, and support. And in that group, I met Dr. Dick Schwartz, the founder of the IFS Internal Family Systems Therapy Model. And he found out what I was doing in the classroom, embedding those principles in my classroom and working with my students who are high-end trauma survivors. And he asked that I start training with a team, and it has sort of taken off. We actually tomorrow have our world debut on the world stage. So things are very exciting right now, and I look forward to sharing with you a little bit about the work that I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as I start my piece on the Rising Scholars Program, I have to acknowledge that this is certainly a team effort. It takes many more people than just myself to make this happen. So I'd like to acknowledge Brenda Jones, Olga Galvan with admission. So Brenda Jones is the Pathways Coordinator. Olga Galvan works with admissions and records. Ariana Hernandez provides administrative support, and we have an extraordinary student worker, Maria Godoy, who is just instrumental in helping us get all of our pieces together to make this program happen. And also our partners at the facilities are just amazing and very, very welcoming of Hartnell and work very well with us. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge them as well. So as mentioned, today we're just going to do a brief overview and then dive into trauma-informed practices. So our our Rising Scholars Program currently provides the sociology degree for transfer as well as the psychology degree for transfer at both Salinas Valley State Prison and the Correctional Training Facility. Just to give you an idea of the scope, this semester we are planning for 19 sections that will serve about 560 students. Some of those may be duplicated because we do have a few that are planning to take more than one class, but the majority are signed up for one class. Faculty teach the same class as they would at the main campus. It's the same course outline with the same expectations, same textbooks, same assignments. So the work that students are expected to do is the same as any other student. I frequently get asked that, and we certainly want them to walk out with the same degree as any other student. And we serve 4 facilities. I mentioned the 2 prisons, but we also serve the Monterey County Youth Center as well as the Monterey County Jail. And the other big question that people frequently ask me is why? Why do we serve incarcerated students? And because we're Hartnell College and we serve the Salinas Valley. So whether they are incarcerated or not, currently incarcerated or not, they are part of our community. They reside within our community. And then also because we are about expanding the college-going culture, and many times we have heard of family members being inspired in continuing their education and then seeking out Hartnell and or other community colleges to also continue their education. So we're very proud of that kind of secondary effect. Also, it helps reduce recidivism. There is a lot of research showing that if someone participates in a college course, it significantly lowers their rate of recidivism. And part of that may be because it also increases the likelihood of finding employment upon release. I think it also just expands their worldview, their life view, understanding of themselves and the community, which could be life-changing for many of our students. Some additional reasons to provide the program, if those weren't enough for us, we also have Senate Bill 1391, which requires that the Department of Corrections work with the Chancellor's Office to provide community college courses that support transfer or workforce skills. And we have Proposition 57 that's also helpful because it provides incentives so that inmates can benefit from taking the classes. They usually, if upon completion of their degree, they will get a few weeks reduced from their sentence. So that adds an additional incentive. I will take questions again at the end of our presentation, but I believe, oh, sorry, my last slide, sorry, before I transition over to Tim. Just wanted to give you a sense of the type of classes that we're offering. So these are some of the courses that we have planned for this semester. So for example, you'll see that the Correctional Training Facility in Salinas Valley State Prison offers many of the same as well as the youth center and jail, you'll see many of the same types of classes that we would offer at any of our campuses, such as English, history, ethnic studies, psychology, and counseling.
And some of you might also be wondering, why are we offering such limited classes? It's because we're looking for more instructors to teach more classes. Our goal is to really, for the students to obtain an associate's, possibly maybe in the future as we start to grow even more and have more classes, we could possibly partner with a university to offer a bachelor's degree and master's degree and so on. There are some universities in there, but they're not, they're more for-profit and non-profit, and so I'm not sure about their accreditation, but that is our goal, is to hopefully offer something a little bit more substantial for these students, in addition to possibly counseling, more counseling hours for these students.
And the state is also very supportive of that and has extended the Pell Grant opportunities to encourage that to happen. So thank you for that, Mustafa. Okay, so I will now transition over to Mr. Amaral.
Thank you, Hannah. Before I jump in, let me just tie two ideas together. That quote from the previous presenters by Brene Brown about avoiding a story versus owning a story, and that when you own the story, you can change the outcome, you can change the ending. That's really what this is all about. And what's curious is that if we as instructors, providers, administrators, et cetera, if we ask the wrong questions, we often miss the opportunity to support people as they're rewriting the story. So I want you all for a moment to imagine the first 3 weeks of every semester that has ever happened in every campus in the United States, where you try to get a parking space and you can't get a parking space. Students are trying to get books in the bookstore and they're all running out and there's just chaos. And then at the end of the third week and the beginning of the fourth week, it's just a huge crash and everybody disappears. And that's one scenario. And then the other scenario is that you have somebody who makes it through those first 3 or 4 weeks, and then you start to notice they start to disappear gradually, little by little over time. One of the things that I will tell you is that it is almost never the work, it is almost never the workload, it is almost never the content that we're working with. It is almost always the relationships and the stories that our students are carrying as they come onto campus. And so if we can find a different way to be with them around those stories, if we can be a little bit trauma informed, we can help them in the transition and help them to deconstruct that original narrative when they first come in the door. And so as part of that, one of the things that we want to be aware of is what are called adverse childhood experiences. So, and I think we're on the next slide, if I'm not mistaken. And so for those of you who don't know, adverse childhood experiences is a series of questions that were designed, I want to say in the late 90s, early 2000s. There are 10 of them, and they directly correspond to 7 out of 10 major diseases and a 20-year difference in life expectancy, as you can see there on the chart. One of the things that most folks don't realize is that when we ask the question, why did you disappear from school? It's often framed from the, I missed too many days, I thought it'd be easier to do something else, I was getting bad grades, I needed to get a job, etc. But when we ask the harder question and we say, what was happening in your life when you made the choice to disappear? What I find in my world, particularly because I'm working with students who dropped at an earlier age than the ones we're talking about in your programs, but they become the students who are in Anna's program. After they become the students in Anna's program, they come to me. Many of my students are coming straight out of prison, and I work with them, and then they transition into your classrooms. And when I ask the question, what was happening in your life when you disappeared from school? And we frame it from the viewpoint of ACEs. We talk about verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, physical neglect, divorce or parental abandonment, witness to spousal abuse, family addiction issues, mental illness, and an incarceration of another family. Those are the 10 questions. The answers are staggering. And that's where we see the sort of Venn diagram overlap of the students that are in Anna's program, the students that are in my program, and then they transition into Hartnell. And one of the things that is surprising is that the vast majority of the people in the United States have experienced some form of trauma. The average, national average is that about 78% of the population in the United States has experienced 0 to 3 of those traumatic events. Whereas in California state prison system, it averages somewhere between 6 and 6.5 adverse childhood experiences. And then there's my classroom. My classroom, about 70% of my students have experienced 7 to 10 traumatic incidents from that list. Now, you heard me mention health outcomes, 20-year life expectancy difference. There's actually a shorthand that they use in the medical field, and that is the thickness of your health folder, your health history has almost a direct correlation to the number of traumatic incidents that you've experienced in your life. So when we reframe the question, why are you struggling in school, or why did you drop out of school at whatever level, it is super important for us to understand that 70% plus of the people that we're talking about are disappearing because that's really what's going on in their lives. And so Gabor Mate, doctor from Canada who does an awful lot of work around addiction and trauma, he says that trauma is not what happens to us, but what happens inside of us as a result of what happens to us. And in particular, trauma is a disconnection from self. So part of what we're trying to do with this work is allow our students to get reconnected to self. Now, under harsh circumstances, that's a really big challenge. And when we transfer out of harsh circumstances and we get into a classroom like mine or the ones that you work in, those harsh circumstances may no longer be present, but the body holds those stories. So I'm going to advocate that when you are working with your students and you see that sort of 1,000-mile stare where they get kind of glossy, maybe their breath becomes short, what I want you to be aware of is that very, very often what they are experiencing has nothing to do with the material itself. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I actually learned this lesson a long time ago in my classroom. I had a student ask me to come to her table to look at her work. I came to her table, I looked at her work, and this is upon her invitation, this is not me. And then I saw her get the glossy look, and she asked me, she said, "You have to step back." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "What's going on?" And then she lifted her palms up off the desk, and there were little puddles of sweat underneath her palms. And what I realized was it was my proximity to her. And as the authority figure in the classroom, in particular, I'm a male and I have a particular skin color, that I often will represent exactly the characters that are in some way tied to that narrative of the abuse and trauma that that student is carrying forth into the classroom. So as I'm teaching, one of the things that I have to be aware of is another specialist in trauma. His name is Bessel van der Kolk. Bessel van der Kolk's point is very pertinent in this situation. He says that hearing the story of the trauma is fine. In therapy land, it's fine. It's an okay thing to do. But the real outcome that we're looking for is being able to get the person who's experienced the trauma to be able to live within their body. That they want to be able to live within their own skin. They want to be able to be present for themselves and for everybody else in the natural flow of the day. And yet our trauma survivors quite often really struggle with that. So what I look for in classroom is things like experiences of powerlessness. If they come across a problem where they feel powerless, what will that bring up inside their body? As an instructor, if I'm sensitive to that, what I don't want to do is go at it straight on force, and say, why aren't you getting this? You just need to do X, Y, and Z. What I need to be able to do is take a step back. And in fact, in many cases, I'm going to try to reset the brain to get into another neural network. If I can get the brain to reset into another neural network, the prefrontal cortex engages and we're able to get the math done, or we're able to get the science done. And so part of the art of this work is to be able to get them to shift from that narrative where they believe that they cannot be present in their body into a narrative where they can be present in their body. And then the retention rate goes up in class because they're not as distressed. And in particular, when we build community in the room, there's a huge support network where other people are also helping them to stay in their body. And so, Anna, can we go on to the next slide? I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. One more time, please. Oh, all right. So I thought there was going to be another one in there. All right. So one of the foundational principles that we do in the classroom, that's something that I want, if there was one quote that you could take from me today, it would be this quote. We say, you don't need an education to be of value. You need an education because you are of value. And what that does is it flips the equation right away. Instead of everything being performative, that first you have to do this, and then you'll have value in my classroom. That makes it performative. If instead I say, you don't need an education to be of value, you need an education because you are of value, that student already has value regardless of what their background is, regardless of what their experiences are, regardless of the degree of trauma and the narrative that they carry about their own sense of, in fact, worthlessness, because that's what those trauma experiences tell us, that we are powerless and that our value in the world is less. If I can convince them, it's not even convince them, if I can treat them in this way, they don't need an education to be of value. They need an education because they are of value. Then that flips the script right away. And they know that I'm treating them as the human that they were born. And that reintroduction to the self is what Gabor Mate is talking about. That we lose connection to that real valued sense of self that we have in the very beginning of our identity when we're first in this world. And we don't have anybody holding us on the very first day we're born, cooing to us saying, sweetie, I'm only going to love you if you do what I tell you. I'm only going to love you if you get a really good job. I'm only going to love you if you perform and do all the things that I say. What we all should have is that sense of I'm loved because I'm here, period. Once that's established, then we're all right. And so as I was sharing with Anna the other day, one of the key pieces that we want to be able to do is associate love with education. If we associate love with education, we trigger that part of the body that's associated with approach motivation, and we start leaning into things because we know we're going to get our needs met in that dynamic. Whereas much of education is really about struggling through this avoidance motivation. It's like, how do I get out of this experience? Because it's actually quite painful to me. But if we wrap it in love, and by love, I don't mean romantic love, that's a farce. I'm talking about that love of self that comes from knowing that I have value. And we all know what it feels like because we've seen that image of a mom and a child sitting together reading a book and they're bumped right up against each other, or a dad and a child reading that book bumped up right next to each other, and we can feel that love permeate that moment. That experience means that education is going to be a sweet thing for a really long time. So last but not least, the difference in the trauma experience of my students and those in prison, why my students have had more ACEs than folks in prison. Part of the reason why they're with me is that they had a support network in place. And so the support network allows you to reset and reattune to life. So more than anything, I'm going to advocate that we become that support network that allows students to stay present, be present for the experience of life and with us, as opposed to being something that's about avoidance motivation and we just have to get through it and then pop out the other side. That does not decrease recidivism, by the way. What decreases recidivism is that sense of connectedness, that sense of belonging, that sense of value and worth that I have in the world. And that's why these stories are so important for us to rewrite. And so I have to stop there. And I'm going to take a look at the chat real quick.
And just to share, I'm not as savvy at having my screen up and looking at the chat. So if there are any questions for me, please let me know.
Yeah, so let me touch on one thing about many employers being afraid to hire formerly incarcerated for liability reasons. I will tell you that when the students come into my room on their very first couple of days in, I actually have had people come in and identify by the prison number when they walk in the room rather than by their name. They will sign that on their papers, etc. And so their trauma story is super deep. Their narrative around the outcomes around this is really deep. But by the time they leave, it's cinematic. It is absolutely cinematic. And they go on to you all, where they become physicists and biochemists and teachers and nurses assistants. They become all sorts of things. I have a couple of master's degree candidates that are coming out of your programs. And there is nothing as wonderful as watching them let that go, let those old stories go, and they get to rise up and become who they were really born to be. So I will just say, I'm going to touch on that sense of our own fear about engaging with folks. Just know underneath there's somebody tender waiting. It takes a while to get there, but there's somebody tender waiting.
I'll also add that right now we've been talking about the Rising Scholars Program as it relates to currently or serving students that are currently incarcerated. Hartnell College also has a Rising Scholars Program for formerly incarcerated students that is overseen by the Office of Equity Programs and Bronwyn Moreno. And part of that work is supporting students into careers that are fit their needs and are not setting them up for those false expectations. So it is something that they do get support with. And also just to share that many laws are changing and there are more and more opportunities depending on what the exact background of that individual is. But just to share, I do know a group of men who were fairly recently released and now have a fabulous nonprofit in the Bay Area that is offering support to other formerly incarcerated students. And so their roles range from executive director to director of communications. They have, they've been on NPR and various other outlets. And so they are like just pursuing what they were really their gifts and really offering that to the community. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities that maybe sometimes we are not aware of, but have opened up for formerly incarcerated students.
And if I may touch on a couple of things that are popping up in the chat. The first one is regarding Jason requesting about statistics. So Jason, I have statistics on my own room and the outcomes in my class and some regional statistics. There are some things on a larger scale that are out there, but a lot of this work about trauma-informed practices, particularly at the level of adults, we're on the very front edge of this work. That's why Dick was asking me to do it. It's because there's not a whole lot of folks who are, with 10 years of experience or even 5 years of experience at this. So there's not been a whole lot of work around this population. In fact, if you guys think of all the professional development opportunities that are out there in the world, 99% of them for the K-12 system, and so few of them are for those of us who are working with adults. So there aren't a whole lot of people. But I will tell you that that out of my classroom, we're looking at a retention rate that's about 3 times the average, transition rate into college and graduation from my class that is about 4 times the average. So for my class, I will tell you that it's statistically significant. Yeah, and there are grants available out there. There are folks in Monterey County who are doing work around this, but on a younger scale and getting ready to transition folks into college. If anybody's curious about that, you can reach me. Let me type my email. It's easy. Into the chat.
I also want to add, if I may, Tim.
Yes.
That a lot of these folks, you know, regardless of when they get out, when they take these courses and when they finish it and they get their A or their B or whatever grade they get, there's this intrinsic and extrinsic value for them. And so, and Anna may have a lot more statistics, and maybe at another discussion we can present those, but a lot of these inmates, there's less aggression when they take these classes. They don't get in trouble as much. They create a little bit more of that team effort with this class, and they study together. So there's a lot of that is involved as well. So regardless of what the outcome is, whether they get an associate's, a bachelor's, and whether they get out in 10 years, 5 years, or 20 years, there is that value to them as well. I think somebody mentioned that also in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't mention that also the wardens have been very grateful for the classes and have seen exactly those results, and which is why they really welcome us and provide a lot of support to Hartnell and our programming, because they have seen those effects at their prisons, just a change in behavior and attitude and outlook. And I think that, I mean, when I reflect on myself too, that college had that effect on me as well. I think it helped me better understand myself, my community, my circumstances, and my background. And I think that is universal. So I saw Kelly Locke's question about how do we continue this conversation? And that is a perfect segue, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. And Tim has graciously agreed to continue this work with us. So if you are interested in continuing this conversation, we are developing a professional development opportunity. Please send me an email letting me know that you are interested, and we will continue this conversation with Tim. It is, as you could see, not a light conversation. It is something that I think we, hear a great quote, but also need to process it and to have community to reflect and discuss and talk about what that means and how we approach ourselves and our students. So it won't be a one-day training. It will be a series of days. Tim and I are working on the details of that. So please do send me an email if you're interested. And even if you can't participate but want to learn a little bit more, please send me an email.
And I too am wide open for questions. Please don't hesitate to contact me. My commitment for the first 5 years of this project is yes to everything. So please absolutely don't hesitate. So I need to check out now, Anna. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for listening. And please hug my students up when they come to you. They turn out to be the most fantastic people you can imagine.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye-bye.
So we do have a few minutes and I can take questions. I guess if you unmute yourself and.
Hey, Anna, I have one more question that I put in the chat there. Do we have any connection to legal services for some of these students? Because there is a lot of bias. There are some hurdles. There are things that they may not know about that they have rights to once they're able to go out with their education and try furthering their careers. So do we have those sorts of resources for those students?
Yeah, so what we have is we have a referral system. And Bronwyn Moreno would be the best person to answer that, but I know that we do have a counselor working specifically with formerly incarcerated students, and they do refer them to outside services as needed. And also I'm excited with the basic needs, I don't know if it's called an office or, that's being developed to also have services there that will be specific for formerly incarcerated students. So we currently have some some services out of the Office of Equity Programs, and those are growing. Great question. Thank you, Jason. Anyone else? Wow, well, then it sounds like we're going to be able to give you some minutes back for, for your previous break.
Oh, Anna, there was a question. I just saw a question pop up in the chat.
Who is the specific counselor? I'm going to have to defer to Bronwyn Moreno because I know that sometimes that changes from semesters to semester. So I'd hate to give you wrong information. So the best thing to do would be to email Bronwyn Moreno. Are there any faculty who have tips from their experience working with Rising Scholars? Great, thank you, Dr. Wilkinson. And the silence, I guess, is no one that wants to share. But that reminds me, again, if you are curious about teaching in the Rising Scholars program, again, let me know. I could also, it's not a commitment. You can just let me know that you're curious, and we can also arrange a tour at the facility. Right now, it's a little bit difficult because of COVID and just taking some more precautions, but we can certainly follow up and arrange a tour. And if we do get a group of folks, maybe we can arrange a group tour.
Anna, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I see that we did get some responses from faculty. It would be great if anybody else speaks up spontaneously, but I do know from conversations that I've had with our faculty, many of them say when they're working with this population, it's more powerful than their regular. When I call it regular, I'm careful with that word, but it's more powerful than the students that they teach in our classrooms on our our campus sites. There's a sense of achievement there that the teacher becomes a partner with the student to reach that. That's I think Tim used the term cinematic. It's worth a movie. There are some, I know there's some good TED Talks on stories of people either who've helped with incarcerated students or had been the incarcerated student themselves. It's life-changing. And I think for all of us, if I can generalize, we're in education because we do believe it changes lives. For many of us, it changed our own life, right? So just wanted to add that from what I'm hearing from faculty, and maybe people don't speak up this morning, but out there in the world, as you get busy with the semester, look for opportunities to support this program. Thanks.
With regards to online teaching, the state is working on that. The state is pretty slow, but they have said that maybe by the fall, students will have access to computers and very restricted access to the internet. So that is coming, not there yet. They have said the fall, but I kind of don't hold your breath. It may be, maybe not this fall, but maybe next fall. But
so when they told you that they were going to have limited access to the internet, did they reference the ability to take an online class that way?
Absolutely. The reason why they're doing it is because they want to offer access to Canvas and to increase opportunities to take more college classes. Yeah.
Great. I think that will really increase your pool of instructors, because I'm sure that some are hesitant to enter the prison for a variety of reasons, but still want to help and still want to, reduce barriers to the formerly incarcerated education and ability to get a job. So I hope that when that opportunity arises, that's widely communicated, I do think it will give you a nice big pool of instructors.
Thank you. I
And then
will
speaking of
go, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, speaking of instructors, I have a question for Anna and Dr. Wilkinson, or maybe more of a suggestion. I worked with my dean the end of last semester to conduct interviews specifically for COM1, and I noticed that it's not being offered this spring. So I'm assuming that those candidates fell out. And one of the things that I noticed is that I'm not sure that our human resources department knows how to necessarily speak the language to recruit the right type of instructors that would be passionate about this work. And I really had the sense coming out of those interviews that the candidates felt a little bait and switch, not by anything that HR did intentionally, but by some things that HR didn't do. And so is there the possibility of sort of getting in, like, Dr. Wilkinson, your office, Anna, you, and maybe the disciplines and HR all in one room to really come up with job descriptors that attract the type of candidates we really need to fill these positions?
It's a great idea, Dr. Huff. Thank you. I will try to act on this. If I don't, remind me, because I think it's a good idea. And whatever we can do to increase our faculty pool, we want to do that. And I do think there was a hire at the last minute in COM, but I'm not sure it's in the system yet. I'm hoping that will be going through before Monday.
Oh, good news.
And just a big shout out again to Ana Gonzalez for her passion and her dedication to the Rising Scholars and the inmates, and also the support for faculty. I know Brenda Johnson's also been very crucial in making sure that the inmates get the books that they need on time, clearing the logistics for the instructors to go in and teach. It is challenging to teach at inmate education at Rising Scholars. However, it is very, very rewarding. So you get that back in the reward. So thank you, Ana, for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you. If faculty, if anyone's available and wants to share about their experience teaching there, but I often hear from faculty sharing that, they are often their best students. They're very engaged, do their readings and their work, and sometimes they'll share, quite the opposite of students at the main campus. And that is because some students have shared with me, that is the one place and time in their week where they feel like a student and not like a prisoner. A place where their ideas and opinions are sought out and valued, and that is of tremendous value to them. So that's the one part that makes me a little bit hesitant about moving fully online, because then we would lose that piece of it. But it does offer some other opportunities.
Anna, it looks like you have a question from Bronwyn.
Oh, great. Bronwyn, if you'd like to speak about, there were a few questions about the Rising Scholars program for formerly incarcerated students. I don't see the question though. I think it already scrolled up from my.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for sharing the informative presentation. I think just similar to, the faculty comments in the chat were right on, like this trauma-informed practices supports all of our students and our colleagues, for that matter, how we interact with one another with, empathy and compassion. So definitely appreciate the space to be here. If there's specific questions, we do have a unique structure at Hartnell where we've really tried to maximize our resources. And so we have two different departments collaborating to support our students who are impacted by the carceral system, from incarceration all the way through their release, and support them in achieving their educational goals once they're on the outside as well. So those services, direct services to formerly incarcerated students, occur through the Office of Equity Programs, and that program is still being developed, but we do have some core elements in place. And so I could share some of that. And then if there's specific questions, we do have two amazing counselors who are trained in trauma-informed practices. To your question in the chat, Carol, thank you so much for that question. And they do a wonderful job working with them. They're aware of the specific barriers that formerly incarcerated students might experience. We also have a partnership with the Public Defender's Office, which can offer records expungement services for our students. And we also partner with community-based organizations. There's a legislation that allows some individuals to reduce felonies to misdemeanor. And so we have a partnership that can support students with that. So we do academic planning, advising, and then we also have a fellowship program. So some of our formerly incarcerated students might need support in developing professional skills, and also might have barriers to employment as a result of their incarceration. And so our fellowship program provides paid professional development opportunities for formerly incarcerated students. And they have an opportunity to be paired with an amazing faculty advisor, who's Dr. Nereida Oliva, who works in our ethnic studies department, who then provides the ongoing mentoring and support for the fellows. And our next goal is we're hoping to create a peer support network. It's been challenging in the pandemic, but that is a really effective strategy that we're hoping to develop further in the coming year.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak.
No, thank you, Bronwyn. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of the comments in the chat. Please feel free to email either myself or Bronwyn if you have specific questions for formerly incarcerated. And thank you everyone for attending.
Excellent. Of course, my dogs start to bark right then, right? They're totally asleep all morning. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I taught for the Rising Scholars Program and really enjoyed it. So excellent. We were correspondents the whole time because of COVID, which was like total throwback for me. So it was fun and interesting. They are golden doodles and they bark a lot. But they're cute. And that's what matters, right? So it looks like we are taking a break. We will come back at 10:20, where we will hear from the Academic Senate. So I will see you back then.
Actually, that's good. Hey, Beamer. Are you ready for your 10 minutes of fame?
I am. Consider this is a steady thing now. Been doing it every year for how many years?
I know, right? I gotta get a throat drop real quick. Hold on. Hi, Maya. I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, let's see. Maya's moving into your old office.
Yay.
Yay. For those of you who have ever presented at some of these things, or actually you're all teachers, right? So you know you go into a classroom and you have that moment where you're giving the lecture and you just start to get the tickle and the cough in your throat that won't go away. So throat drop coming. What to figure out. Dave, will you be able to, I'll share the PowerPoint, but are you going to need to share to demonstrate tools?
Yes, please.
Okay, so at that point, let me know if we need to go back and forth because there's slides for each of your tools and as you speak to that.
Let's
So,
just run through them and then we'll go to the tools.
okay,
Just kind of talk about them briefly, then go to the tools, then we can come back if we need to.
well, actually at that part where I have a slide where I transition to you, so you can speak to them and tell me to advance the slides and
Okay.
then I'll stop the share so you can demonstrate.
All right, you two, are you ready?
Ready as we'll ever be.
It's the story of my life. You're talking about that throat tickle. Story of
Ugh.
my life, I tell you.
It's so annoying.
Yes, I'm a box right here and I'm forever slamming them down. So let me go ahead. Our numbers are going back up. So it looks like everybody's coming back. So let me go ahead and start the recording. All right. Looks like we're back up and running. We are here with our final large group session. Our final large group session is the Academic Senate. Cheryl will be bringing us some information about spring program planning. And we'll have some added information from, I think David Beamer is going to be joining us. Yes.
Yes.
Am I correct? Okay. I didn't want to be putting people in your presentation that.
And Kelly Locke too. She will have a
Okay. There we
brief
go.
appearance.
Okay. So take it away.
All righty. Well, hello, everyone. Just want to make a quick comment. Well, for those of you who may not know me, my name is Cheryl O'Donnell. I'm the Academic Senate President. And I had the moment of realization that this is probably my last presentation at one of these. This is my 4th semester, excuse me, of doing this. So, oh, I'm sorry, my throat is just. Never fails. I just saw a news reporter the other evening on the news trying to get through her thing, and her throat just had that moment of locking up on her. So anyway, I am the Academic Senate President, wrapping up my 2-year term. I'm happy to be here to talk to you today about program planning and assessment. And I just want to say to Jenny and the Professional Development Committee, I know a lot of work goes into setting up these days, and the previous presentations we've had this morning have just been awesome. I've been so motivated and moved.
Agreed.
At one point, I just felt tears hearing about some of our trauma, students that endure trauma and all that. So it's a little bit hard to switch gears and come in with the PPA. Yay! It's like that commercial about today we're going to talk about flossing our teeth. But I do want to talk about this because PPA, AKA program review at other schools, really does have an important place in the work that we do. And it may not seem that way. It might seem like something we check off on the box. And yet there's a reason for it. I want to give a little background for those who are newer to the college or maybe just haven't, been involved with academic senate issues and the work that we do. The role of the academic senate is that we are the voice at Hartnell College for faculty in all academic and professional matters. And this is defined by legislation, by law, and then implemented through Title V. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this part. Kelly Locke is just a great expert on it. She's done some great work in even educating our own local Senate about
Carol?
the responsibility that we have. Yes?
Can you share the slideshow? Because we can't see it.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, hold on. Now I got to find I have this
You're on
double
that-
monitor thing going on.
You
here.
have that. Yeah, I was going to say you have your double monitors on. So
Yeah, hold on. It's Friday. Okay, let's see now. Okay, so I have a question here real quick for you guys. Are you seeing the screen that has the slides on the left panel, or are you seeing the full screen?
Slides on the left.
Slides on
the
left.
The one with the slides on the left?
Yes, it's not in presentation view here.
Okay. Oh, here we go. How about now?
Yes, good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. I would have gone through this whole thing, no doubt. Oh my gosh. Okay. So when we talk about academic and professional matters, they're referred to as the 10+1. I'll just reel them off real quickly. They're important though. This is the work that we do, and this is the area that we have a voice in and that we work with our board and make recommendations and policies and processes. So we have curriculum, we have degree and certificate requirements, grading policies, educational program development, standards or policies regarding student preparation and success, district and college governance structures as related to faculty roles. And you all heard the presentation yesterday from Hetty and Peter Gray and Brian Loftman about the new redesign that's going on with our governance structure. So the academic senate is involved in that. Faculty roles and involvement in the accreditation process, establishing policies for faculty professional development, processes for program review of PPA, and that's why we're having this presentation today, and then processes for institutional planning and budget development. And it is referred to as a 10+1, and we have a 1 here at the college, which when I believe Lisa Storm was president, she worked with our past president, Dr. Llewellyn, and they put equivalency into that +1 category. So this year, as an academic senate, we identified 3 priorities, areas of focuses that we wanted to take a look at. And in rank order, they came up as program planning and assessment, enrollment management, and professional development. Numbers 1 and 3 are directly listed in the 10+1 as areas of purview. And enrollment management, there's a white paper from the state senate. There are different aspects of enrollment management that fall under the 10+1. All 3 things very important. So as I said, PPA ranked number 1. And part of that is because our program planning and assessment process, we own it as faculty. It's 10+1. It's about our programs. It's about what we do. And so I'm going to turn this over right now for the next few slides to Kelly Locke, who was involved with creating the PPA philosophy statement. And Kelly, go ahead and take it. Tell me when you want me to advance the slide.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. So as you probably heard, this is our version of program review, and we purposely renamed it Program Planning and Assessment because program review means looking back only. Review means looking back. And we felt like the real purpose of our process was to not just look back, but to look back, to assess, and then use that data to make plans for the future. And so we came up with a philosophy statement about our PPA process. And the idea is to have an authentic, honest and authentic view of a program, to assess its strengths, opportunities, needs, and connection to the mission and goals of the college. And this was a really important component to the committee. We had a program planning and assessment committee that did not survive the last reorganization of our governance structure. So that does not any longer exist, but this committee came up with this philosophy statement and brought it to the Senate for approval in 2008. And again, the idea is planned improvement. So Cheryl, yeah, thank you. The other part of program planning and assessment we're really familiar with as educators. PPA is a formative process, right? It's formative assessment. The purpose of it is to help us to change and grow and learn and improve. And so because of that, it's cyclical, right? You have analysis, you look back, you assess, you prepare a plan for the future with your colleagues in your department for your program. And we define programs as degrees and certificates for the most part, although there are some other faculty groups or departments that do prepare their own program planning and assessment reports, even though they don't have a degree or certificate in their area. But you look at the data, you prepare a plan, and then you implement the plan, and then you reassess. And so this is a way for us to be able to advocate for our needs, for educational excellence. Remember, the Senate's role is really, in a lot of ways, quality control, right? And so we need to be able to advocate for our needs so that we can achieve that educational excellence, and advocating for our needs actually in the college plans and their budget. So the PPA is our link to the budget and planning process of the college. Next slide, Cheryl. Thank you. So the third part of the philosophy statement is about then what happens after the PPA process is over. It provides information for college-wide decision-making and resource allocation. This is the way our PPA process should work. The information from PPA should result in decision-making based on that evidence, and also resource allocation based on the needs of the program, and then improve that flow of information about student learning. Not all areas know what's happening in every other areas. And so the idea that we could provide communication to other departments and groups on campus about what's happening with student learning in our programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. So Kelly gave you a little background on the philosophy. There are other reasons why we do this, and one of them is accreditation. And we all know as educators, we go through an accreditation cycle. We have to maintain that accreditation, and program review is referenced throughout the standards. Right? It is our quality control. It's one of those things that we do to keep the checks and balances and measure the job that we're doing. And Dave Beamer is part of a writing team. There's new standards that are going to be coming along for those of you who have been involved in the accreditation process. They are kind of, I think, even reducing the number of standards even more, and taking a look at them through a different lens, right? Because our times keep changing. And he said that two key words he is repeatedly hearing in the meetings and in the work that he's doing are outcomes and equity. So at the college, and I'm going to try to speed this up to give Dave the time he needs. But we adopted, the Senate adopted a 4-year cycle. And that cycle aligns somewhat with our 4-year assessment plan that we do. In year 1, we have a program overview. So that was last year. You all did the work on that. This year, we're in year 2, and the focus is on course data. So course enrollment, success, retention, the disaggregation of data, which is, by the way, required in accreditation standards, looking at disaggregation of data by modality and by demographics. And then year 3 is about our program data, degrees and certificates, awards, things of that nature. And then year 4, we wrap up with the year of the PLO, looking at the big picture of our programs, including student learning outcomes, aggregating all that data that you enter each semester when you're assessing your outcomes, and seeing how the learning is happening, as well as awards and degrees being given. And it's really the big picture. And that will be year 23-24. So we're in year 2 right now. So questions were brought to the Senate. Like every year, you have some different things to look at in your PPA. Those questions are to align with that 4-year plan and cycle. And there's a more complete chart on the website that shows you all the elements that fall into each year. But Dave Beamer and Matt Tringrove, who's no longer with us because he went to Tennessee, they brought questions forward to the Senate, and there was a lot of debate and discussion. And as we heard in our new look at a governance structure about consensus, right? Debate and is part of what we do. Asking questions, raising issues. So there were some concerns about the data that had been reported during COVID. And there was a desire on the Senate's part to have what we felt was an opportunity for some meaningful information to be gathered from all of you about your teaching and what's going on. And so we actually went over a period of 3 different Senate meetings, which that means 6 weeks of having Dave and Matt come. We met separately as a steering committee. So a lot of work went into coming up with the questions that you're going to be working with this year. The finalized questions will be having you focus on your course level success rates in your major required courses, and you will be looking at that data that is disaggregated by gender and ethnicity. And this is a new tool that you'll be using, and Dave's going to show you that. We're taking a look at online equity. We've had a 1.5 years now of online learning and teaching because of the pandemic. And so we're going to compare and have a chance to look at success rates by modality and how this 2021 year of all online compares in regard to previous years where we had face-to-face, hybrid, and online. There will be a chance for you to look at practices that can be used to improve equity gaps. And these go back to the rubrics, the ones that Nina and Janet presented this morning about ways that we can address that in our teaching. And then one that was really a big focus of the conversation, the lessons and opportunities that we have experienced as faculty in our disciplines for online teaching and learning. After we look at these first 3 items that are bulleted here, then you're going to have the chance to do some intentional planning and answering questions on what we're going to do as we move forward. The part about the pandemic learning opportunities, teaching and learning, will address the faculty teaching experience and what we have experienced as instructors having to shift to online and the things that we did to try and learn and adjust our teaching methods, as well as addressing the student learning experience, not from the student perspective, but from what you saw as a faculty member with your students. And the hope is that we are going to be able to collect all the responses from all of you that are in different disciplines doing your PPAs and pull together a Senate report, something equivalent to a white paper. So planning, right? Program planning and assessment. And planning is important, and planning for the future is important. And the next few slides are not to, please don't take it as any kind of, strong army to you must teach online. Online is the way to go. I many years ago got a master's in online teaching and education. I know it's an avenue for certain students. It works for certain students, for certain lifestyles, for certain needs. It's not the only way. It's not for everyone. But I'm going to share with you some information that has been, that I've come across. It's been out there from some reports and webinars. The California Competes program, which deals with our workforce in California, has a Get Ready report. And I put the link in there. So if you take time on your own, you can access the report. It was very telling and very informative, regardless of, what we want or desire. There's a shortfall of 2 million plus degrees and certificates that are needed to meet current employment needs. And so this group, this organization did a survey, and 5.1 million California adults, which is 15% of the adult population, indicated that they plan to enroll in higher education within the next 2 years. And I think part of this was spurred by the pandemic and that realization as people had to shelter in place, they lost jobs, businesses closed, about opportunities that might be waiting for them and changes that they may need to make. Of those 5.1 million, 3.9 of those California adults said that they were interested in enrolling in that higher education exclusively in online instruction. Oh, sorry, let me pass this. I meant to take that last slide out. Sorry. So figure 2, just real quick, here was the overall results. The 19% of adults broken down by gender, 16% men, 22% women. By race and ethnicity, we can see Latinx, 33% at the highest. And the age groups of those who plan to enroll, and the 25 to 34 age group being the highest. Now, where do they plan on enrolling? That was very close in terms of the results. 12% at public university, 8% vocational or technical college, 13% at community college. In addition to the report, which I hope you can take a look at in your spare time, but maybe after things settle in the semester, I was able to watch a webinar. I know that Cynthia Ainsworth watched it. Some of you may have as well. It was hosted by Inside Higher Ed, and it was on the student, faculty, and administrator perspectives on the impactful digital learning that's taken place in our community colleges in light of the pandemic. There's a link to recording. You can sign up and watch it. It's still available. They shared a lot of information that was gathered by Bayview Analytics, which is out of Oakland. And this is one slide I wanted to share, that the 2-year students indicated they want more online, more hybrid digital materials and technology post-pandemic. So regardless of whether we choose to continue teaching face-to-face or we move to hybrid and online, these are things that the students are saying that they want. And there are many more slides in that presentation, and there's a slide deck that goes with it. So if you go to that link, it takes you to Inside Higher Ed, and you can get the slide deck with all these charts and data, as well as watch the webinar. And what's interesting is the information in there, as well as what's in the California Competes report, really echoes what our own students have said and what was presented to our board and has been presented to some of the councils on campus by Matt Tringrove, of what our students are indicating that they desire moving forward. So what is the message? The PPA is a planning tool, so use it as that. Look back at what we have done, look at what your data has reflects and what your course success rates and things like that are showing and telling you. And then think about it as we move forward. What did you experience as a discipline during the pandemic? What worked well, what didn't? What do your success rates look like? What should scheduling look like moving forward? Do we want to consider more hybrid, more online? You know your programs best. You're the experts. So give some really thoughtful reflection on the questions that are in the PPA so that we can use that to move forward and to plan. I'm going to turn over now the rest of the slides to Dave Beamer. And Dave, you just tell me when to progress each slide, and it's your turn.
So if you look at the agenda today, we have 45 minutes at the end of the day in our discipline groups to work on the PPA. I want to take the rest of the time for this meeting today to go over a couple of the tools, because one of the first tool here, which is the SSEC Success Analysis Dashboard, is in Flexit. And Flexit is, I want to say, clunky, but you have to be pretty methodical with it to get back and forth to the data. So I'm going to go over that one. And then the next slide I'm going to go over on the tools is an Excel spreadsheet that we're going to look at. So if Cheryl will stop sharing.
Okay.
This is what the Flexit dashboard looks like. There is a link in the help sheet that I sent out to everybody this morning. And there's a link within the PPA itself in Illumin, in the template in Illumin. When you get in it, if you see success analysis up here, you're in the right place. The help sheet for this tool, the first time I logged in, it didn't take me here. And I show you how to get to here if you don't go here automatically. Now, looking at this tool, there's a lot going on right now. So I want to show you how to pare the data down first so it's easier to look at. And we're going to use these little menus up here at the top. So the first thing we're going to do is come in and select semesters. And we want to select 4 semesters to look at, which is 17, 18 through 2021. After I select these semesters, I'm going to hit the green arrow so it saves. Now I want to select semesters. When we look at data on campus, we tend to only look at fall data and spring data. Summer data can muddy the water significantly. So for this exercise, just look at fall and spring data. Next, we're going to pick a subject. And you can see every name is in here. And I'm going to pick on biology today. Now, if you ever come to our meetings for like the advisory research group, we tend to pick on administrative justice because it's the top of the alphabet. But, and Lisa laughs, but it's true.
Helps us get more students too, Dave.
Yes.
First one to come up and pause self-service.
I'm going to select the green arrow again to get into biology. Now, for this exercise, we are looking at all the required major courses in your degrees and certificates. I have pre-populated them in Illumin for you. Now, there's 2 exceptions to that. ESL, because I couldn't find your required major courses for your new degree, and the same with the EMT courses. I know there's a new EMT certificate coming out. I could not find the required courses. Add them yourself, please. Also realize when you're doing this, you are not limited to looking at just your required major courses. If there's another course you want to look at it and add it to your data so we can expand our data group. So for courses here, we're going to look at Bio 5. And if you don't know what Bio 5 is, Bio 5 is anatomy. And once I get it down to this, you see it's a much, much more manageable screen to work with. And you notice there's some colors here. Anything green is 1 standard deviation above or considered really good. Anything red is considered 1 standard deviation below or something we need to work on. And what we're really working at here, and the problem I'm having right now on my screen, is the faces of the from Zoom. But what I want to do, what's most important here for disaggregated data is sliding all the way over here to the right. And this is where the disaggregated data is.
Dave?
Yes.
Real quick, a question that came up in the chat was above or below what?
The average for the campus.
Okay.
So, and what sucks about this is you kind of got to go back and forth. So we can see the top two are spring and fall of 2021. And then it goes, the 4 other years follow. So it goes fall, spring, fall, spring coming up. If we look here, what's interesting, if you look at the success rates for the class, that in the fall of the first semester we looked at, they got a red. But during the 3 semesters where we did more online education, they went green. If you look at over here at the disaggregated data, in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semesters or 4 semesters, there's red dots. But once we went online, there became a lot of green dots. And again, the reason we're showing you this is so you can look at it and say, okay, what did we do to make such a great improvement? Or you can take a step back, and if you went from green to red and say, what happened where our numbers dropped? What do we need to work on to reach those students? So it's really, really interesting once you get in here and look at it. And you're going to take the data from these dots and kind of in a table in Lumen, you're going to place, hey, we had, green dots for these categories. We had red dots for these categories. So you can kind of memorialize it. But you're also doing this for every course in your required major courses. So one of the hard things to do in this is start over again. So if I'm staying in biology, I can come here and I can move to another course that I know is a required major course in biology. And I can go to Bio 6. But if you notice, if I just click Bio 6, I'm going to get both of them on the screen, which could be confusing. So I need to unclick Bio 5 and click on Bio 6. I click the arrow, and now I have the Bio 6 data for the four academic years. And you can see it's a lot more neutral of a data here. But you can see they had a couple red dots, a couple green dots. That's it. It's not too hard to look at. But in your discipline, you may have things from multiple groups. Bio 5 and Bio 6 are also in the kinesiology major. So if I need to get to a kinesiology class, how do I get there? And you have to work backwards. I'll start the course. I'll deselect all, hit the arrow, go back to subject, deselect all, and I'm going to go down to PE theory, hit the green arrow, and go into the courses, and we'll select PE Theory 1, which is in our kinesiology degrees. And you can see it pulls up the kinesiology. And you can see we have our same thing. We have a mix. We have some green dots. We have some red dots. And we want you as a group to look at the dots and try to see if you can identify it as a gap or identify it as a win and say, okay, we're getting why are the females doing so well now? Can we do that for the males? Or,
Dave,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Just I'm trying to keep you up with some things that are in the chat. And Peter Calvert asked about in the dots that aren't green or red, how to interpret those.
They are within 1 standard deviation of normal. So we're not really addressing them. You can address and say, hey, everything's within normal, we're good. But these are showing the extremes.
There's also some messages too, and I know you have another tool to go through about comparing to the college average. And I saw some in there from Tina. Tina, in the next tool that Dave's going to show, there will be where you can just focus on within your own program and discipline and compare your courses to your program averages as well.
Yes. And the other thing here is if you go to the dots and hover over any dot, it will show what the actual number is. And of course, I picked a bad example. But if we go to female, the success rate, 82.6%. male success rate 62.5%. So if you want actual numbers, you can also hover over these numbers to get the actual, or over the dots to get the actual numbers. So this tool isn't overly hard to use, but you kind of need to go in order with these menus up here. And when you're switching disciplines, you need to clear, and then go back the other direction for it to work really well. Okay. So again, this is Flexit. If you try to get for Flexit, you must be on a campus computer or you must be on the virtual desktop for this tool to work. And if you try to get into Flexit and it won't let you in, contact the IT department, because I was told that all full-time faculty now have access to Flexit. And that was by Matt Trengrove before he left for Tennessee. So I'm assuming everybody has full access to Flexit. And I would say I'd normally have my wife at home try it, but I know she already has access because she was on the advisory research group. We were all given access through that. So if you don't have access, try IT first. If IT doesn't work, contact me and I will find the right person at IT and get it done for you as quickly as possible.
And Dave, I think it's important just to let faculty know, you will be working on this afternoon, as Dave indicated. There's kickoff with your deans in your areas, but there's no expectation that this work, is to even be started today. It's going to take you some time, and you're going to have to figure out when you can meet with your fellow faculty and get into the tools and look at that. So,
fully agree. I think today it's good to get in, read through the questions entirely on Ellumin, and if you can get something done, get it done. But read through, get the questions, start thinking about the questions. Now, the other tool we're going to use, and we used this one last year, is a spreadsheet. And Matt, before he left, did add a couple new tables here on the side of comparing your discipline or your course versus college success rates. But again, primarily for this one, we are looking at the courses that are required major courses in your discipline that are also already there in Ellumin for you, and I hope they're right. So again, you can come here and on this one, you want to select multiple items. And if you want to find something, it's easiest to search by typing in. We'll start with bio. And let's go down to bio 5 again. And this will pull up the course data for bio 5 for that 4-year period that we're looking at. Now, what's unique about this tool for this year is we are assuming that 2021 was all online. That, as you see in the data, it says distance ed and face-to-face. That is something from the state level that we have no control over. Because that first in fall 2020, we listed everything like they were supposed to be listed as they were supposed to be taught, even though they weren't taught that way. So for 2021, we are looking at only the final number, and we're assuming that it is all taught online. And if you were around in spring 2021 on campus, and I was, you realize that there wasn't very many people on campus. It was basically nursing and athletics. So everybody else, it's fairly true that this was fully online. But what we want you to do is compare this to these other numbers. And of course, Bio 5 is a horrible course to compare it to because they're usually taught in person. But what's interesting about this, and the reason I still decided to show you this, is their success rate all online was 78.4%, compared to the previous years where it was 50, 53, 69%. That is a fabulous improvement. And as a department, one of the things they can do is look at this and say, okay, what did we do online to increase our success rate so much? And how can we take that back when we teach more in person? So let's.
Dave, there also was some comments in the chat too from our math faculty. Thank you very much, math faculty. To keep in mind that the excused withdrawals, the EWs that we were able to give students, those were not included in the denominator, which normally we know if a student withdraws or we give them a W, they are included in the denominator when we calculate the success rate. So, I mean, that's, you know, that's just something to keep in mind as we do see, yes, there are higher success rates, but partly it's due to that as well.
So I'm going to go to ADJ right now. And let's try ADJ1. And the reason I want to show you ADJ is if you look at it, they do have distance ed, they do have face-to-face, and they do have hybrid for all their courses. So for this case, I'm going to look at the 64.7% success rate during the pandemic year, all taught online, and I can compare it to these other 3 years as how do they do normally versus a hybrid? How do they do normally versus face-to-face? How do they do normally versus distance ed? And what you see here is their distance ed numbers is significantly better than their normal distance ed numbers. Okay, their face-to-face, it's a little bit lower, but you see their best success in the past has been hybrid. So it's a little bit down from hybrid. So this is the direction we're comparing. And I think we, you know, I want to talk through this because it's a little different. And again, for 2021, we're using the grand total number and with the assumption that it was all online, all pure distance ed.
Dave, why does it say 0% hybrid though for 2021?
I don't know.
Because that's not accurate.
You should have had some hybrid scheduled for the fall of 2021.
We did.
Well, you know what? I think I've noticed that I haven't seen any hybrid come up for anybody in 2021.
Well, that's probably not very accurate.
Well, but you know, everything, like, again, we're just for 2021, we're just assuming the final number here, and we're assuming it was all distance ed. No matter what it says up here, use the grand total number, assume it was all distance ed, and compare it to the previous 3 years for the 3 different modalities that we look at. And trust me, the discussion on this in Academic Senate was huge, because I think it's a faulty number to look at, but by assuming we're going to look only at this number, it fixes the bad assumption that was made. So the last thing I want to go over is Illumin itself. And I got to get everything so I can see things. And the thing I want to point out, and it didn't do it to me, is this is what your Illumin screen looks like when you go into Illumin. But there is an issue where you get a different screen when you first go into Illumin. And the screen says there's a security problem. When you get that screen, you need to click through it. The security problem is not on Illumin's end. The security problem is on Hartnell's end. And it's something where the way it was explained to me by Dave Phillips before he retired is that it was something that was done before he got here, and nobody remembers the login or the password or even what it is to update the certificate that needs to be updated to get rid of that message screen. So when you go into Illumin and you get the thing that says, do you want to proceed? Click the 2 things on the left to get you through it, and it will get you to this screen to get into Illumin. Also in Illumin, like all 3 of these tools are using your normal Hartnell credentials to get in. And of course, mine doesn't work when I need it to. Now, when you get into Illumin, let me get into a faculty role here. Just a quick reminder on Illumin, As faculty, you're going to go to strategic planning on the right-hand side. And PPA should show up right here. We are looking at, and I'm involved in too many PPAs, as you can tell. When you get into your PPAs, you'll see that there's a PPA that's 2021, 2022. That is the current PPA. If you get into a Lumen and there are no PPAs here, I may have missed you when I added you to your discipline. So that's another time you contact me and say, hey, I can't get into my discipline's PPA, and I can get you in a matter of seconds if I'm by a computer. So let me get into a PPA. And again, I'm sorry, I pick on administrative justice because it's the easiest one to get into alphabetically. And when you get into it, come on. Click on the blue link there. It will get you your disciplines PPA. And you can scan down. You can see that there's a place here for your names. There's a place where your dean is going to come in after you've completed it and put their comments in. And then we get into the major sections. Here's the section for the SSEC dashboard that's in Flexit. There's a link to the dashboard. There's a link to the help sheet. And the required major courses are already here. If I've added a course that's not a required major course, delete it. You know your disciplines better than I do. I was given a list that I copied over. And then once you fill in the table, there's some guided questions on that table. Then we go to some things on online equity. And this is the other tool we use, the Excel spreadsheet. Again, you fill in the table. And for this one, there's just a question at the end of the instructions here that you answer in the text box. Then we go to practices that shown to reduce equity gaps. There's a link here to the Peralta equity rubric and our Hartnell College faculty rubric. So use the rubrics, talk about them as a faculty, and there's guided questions with that. And if this is an older version of the Hartnell rubric, I'm sorry. I used the most current one when I created these templates. But everybody should have the newest one in their hands right now. Then we go to a section on lessons and opportunities for online learning and teaching. And while I'm here, I'll show you something. If you see a little blue information dot, you can click on it and there is some more information there. That's the only way I could get it in there was under these little blue dots. But there's questions on pandemic faculty learning, pandemic student learning. And then finally, we get to our intentional planning. And there's questions. And then another planning question. Remember, any plans you create while doing your Illumin process, you're going to mark them here, but there's also a section in your budget request spreadsheet for department plans and department budget requests. The one thing we've added this year is that if there's a budget request that you think is very equity based, please highlight the request in yellow on your budget request spreadsheet. And I believe there's about $200,000 set aside to fund equity-based requests this year coming out of the PPA. Otherwise, that is my quick overview for you. And it does leave us some time for questions if anybody has any questions on the process.
Dave, I think just something that came into my mind as I was reading through the chat and a lot of the questions and the wondering about the excused withdrawals, is that something maybe that that advisory research group that looks at data might be able to look into? And do you know who's going to be leading that committee now that Matt's gone?
I have not heard who's going to lead the committee when Matt now that Matt's gone. I have heard that Bala is going to take over some of the job responsibilities, but I may end up running the advisory research group for the rest of the semester just to keep it meeting and maybe look at the PPA process a little bit from a data perspective. But I have not heard. I know Lisa just asked a great question about the JAJ data. And I know Matt has started for these classes. You're looking at specific Hartnell classes only when you look at the data in the two tools. Because the JAJ classes are not included, the student data is not including in our data. I know that. And I know Matt has also, when he looks at demographics for the college, has started pulling out JAJ students from the demographic data to give us a truer picture of who is on campus. So hopefully when we get a new director of research, we can maybe get better answers on these questions. But that's the best answer I have right now.
Dave, there's a lot of shout outs to you. Thank you for the work. You've been our dedicated PPA specialist for so many years now. And that became a true necessity when the PPA committee, as Kelly mentioned earlier, was dissolved with the last round of, the governance model that came into play. That is a conversation that the Senate is going to have and we've started having is, do we want to look at bringing back a PPA type committee or making it a subcommittee, but something where there is the opportunity for faculty to have these conversations to determine, what those questions are, what we want to look at. You've done just a tremendous job, though, in maintaining that pipeline for us as a faculty in working with the Office of Research. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I know we still have about 10 minutes before we move into break. And is Dr. Wilkinson there? Yeah, she is here. I don't know, Dr. Wilkinson, if we don't have, a lot of questions coming our way, do we want to just allow a little bit extra stretching time for faculty to get up and do arm circles and stretches?
Can I also make the comment that I am available? If you're having a problem with your PPA, please reach out to me because I can help you with the tools, I can help you with the questions, or I can get you to the person who can help you the best. Just realize my schedule is opposite most of yours, where my free time is in the mornings before 9:30, and most afternoons, if there's a game on campus, I may be stuck on a field and I can't look at a computer.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I just saw Dr. Math with his dumbbells.
Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl, for recognizing what we need to do to keep our brains warm during a long day of sitting. I think the self-care that we heard about, it's something we could do in the next 9 minutes. Maybe you could chat somebody who you haven't seen for a while in the break and refresh your brain and come back at Jenny. Help me.
I will just let me run down something really quickly for everybody, just so we're all on the same page heading out. Okay, so this is your Canvas. We just finished right here, so we're heading into break. When we come back, you will not come back into this main Zoom link. You're going to go into the breakout sessions. This first breakout group, you're going to have from 5 to choose from. So anything in this maroon-ish column, you'll have the grading session for grading for equity